Hello YouTube, this is Jeremy, also known as Manji1 on various forums and on YouTube. Today I'm going to bring you a review and a cotton rebuild tutorial for the Kayfun Lite. The rebuild tutorial will be after the review portion, so if you're not interested in that, you can just turn it off after the review. So here's the Kayfun Lite. Get some focus on that. There we go. It's a very nice looking atomizer. I had heard a lot about Kayfuns in general, but the price was a little out of my range. The 3.1, when you can find them, goes for about $175, and on secondhand markets goes for $200, $225. That's out of my vape budget in general. I mean, that's pretty expensive for an atomizer. But I heard about the Lite. I heard they were going on sale. Someone on ECF had mentioned they were going on sale, so I set my alarm for 5 a.m., which is about 2 hours after I go to bed, and I woke up and I ordered one from intaste.de a couple of weeks ago. All in all, out the door, it ended up costing me less than $100, so that's great. It arrived to me in 3 or 4 days, which I was super impressed with, and I started tinkering around with it. The build that I have in here right now is the build that I'm going to be doing in the rebuild portion that I'm showing after this review, but that was recorded actually last night. So go ahead and take a vape on this, show you how this performs. Wow. Whew. Take one more. So, as you can see, it produces quite a bit of vapor. I mean, that's obviously going to be dependent on the setup. The setup I have in here currently is cotton yarn and a 4.5 of 28 gauge kanthal, and it meters out to about 1 ohm, right around, I think it's actually 0.9 when I measured it last night. Okay, a couple of things about this. Number one, it's not very fiddly, which is so impressive. If you have any experience with Genesis atomizers, the biggest problem, in my opinion, with Genesis atomizers is they can be a little tricky to set up sometimes. When you get the hang of it, they're not terrible, but at the same time, they can be tricky. This is really easy to set up. It's like setting up a dripper. It's very similar to setting up a dripper, except you have a tank like a Genesis atomizer, so you don't need to fill it very often. So that's really nice. The flavor that this thing produces is outstanding. I mean, it's really, really great. Of all the atomizers I own, this is definitely the best tank style atomizer. I like the flavor off of this better than I like the flavor off of a Genesis style. Not by a mile. It's not like, oh my gosh, totally different, but it's definitely noticeable. It's very similar to a rebuildable dripper as far as flavor goes. And like I said, that's going to be dependent on your setup as well. I feel like if you put silica in this, which is the way I set it up the first time, it's good but not outstanding. With cotton, I feel like it's outstanding. I've also heard a lot of people mention that Echo wool is very good. I don't have any experience with using Echo wool, so I can't speak to that myself. But it's easy to set up. It looks great, and it holds a lot of juice, and it gives great flavor. Just a real quick, why does it produce such great flavor? Well, I mean, I'm no expert, but I'm gonna guess because of the way that it works. It's like this. In the Kayfun, you can actually see there's like a little metal piece on the inside of that tank. What that is it's a little chamber system. So you have the juice surrounding the chamber, and then it wicks down through the wicking material that you have that basically sits down here, and then the coil itself sits inside of the chamber. So you're actually vaporizing in this small chamber, and then it's coming up the stack here and then through the mouthpiece. And so it's being vaporized in a very small chamber, even though the atomizer itself is quite large. And I think that's what produces the really nice flavor that it has. I'm going to go ahead and take one more vape off of this. So, yeah. Do I feel like this is worth the $100 that I paid for it? Well, to me, $100 is a fair amount of money, especially to spend on something goofy like this. But I feel like this was well worth the money, for me at least. This is a really fantastic piece of equipment, and it's definitely my favorite atomizer that I own now. Oh, as far as the mod that this is sitting on right now, this is a modded Sigeli 19 that I have this sitting on, which is just a cheapo mechanical mod. So anyways, we're going to move on to the rebuild portion of this. If you have one of these and you're interested in how to wick it in cotton, then you can go ahead and tune into that. And thanks for watching, and have a great day. One more thing that I did want to mention before we get to the rebuild portion, I want to apologize in advance. I just recently got a new camera that I'm recording with, and I'm not used to the autofocus function completely yet, and in the rebuild tutorial there are a couple sections where the autofocus goes bananas for a couple seconds. It doesn't last for too long, it only lasts for a couple of seconds, but it does happen in 2 or 3 different places, so I apologize. But I do think overall it's pretty easy to make out what's going on. It doesn't seem to go crazy in really important sections. Also, if you have any questions for me, or questions about the atomizer itself, or about the rebuild, you can go ahead and post them in the comments section, and I would be more than happy to answer them for you. So now we'll move on to the actual rebuild. Okay, so here we have everything that we're going to need to rebuild the Kayfun Lite with a cotton wick setup. So basically everything that we're going to need is the Kayfun itself. Here's all the sections to it. And I use a Swiss Army knife. Comes in really handy. It's one of the little classics. Mostly I just use the scissors, but the knife and the nail file flathead screwdriver come in handy. A precision Phillips head, and this is a 3/32 drill bit. And so for wicking it, we have some 28 gauge kanthal and some cotton sugar and cream yarn. And I'm gonna try 28 this time. I've been running 30 in my Kayfun, and I've been getting great vapor production, but I want to try and warm up the vape a little bit, so we'll see how this goes. So this is kind of an experiment for me. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take some wire and just snip off a section. Actually snip off a few inches. It's always better to cut off a little bit more than we need. And then we're going to take our 3/32 drill bit, and I'm going to go for 4 wraps here, and we're going to keep them relatively tight, but not too tight. So, okay, so this is going to be a 4/5, and this 4/5 of 28 is going to meter out to be right around probably about 1.1 ohms. So here we go. This is our coil right here, and focus is probably camera's in a weird spot. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and sit the base onto a mod just so it's a little easier to work on, and then we're going to loosen these two, and oh yeah, that's another thing that I wanted to mention. You actually want to have a north and south going on your coil. You want to have one end facing one way and one end facing another way, because when we mount this, we're actually going to mount it crisscrossed here so that it's going from one side to the other, and so that the coil sits over top of the airflow hole that you'll see on the Kayfun. So I'm just going to go ahead and lock down one side. I actually want to give it a little bit of extra because we're actually going to lift this assembly just a little bit, so that we make sure that we're not touching the chamber itself, to provide airflow, and also to make sure that we don't get a short of any kind, because if the coil is touching the metal base, then you can definitely get a short. So go ahead and there we go. Disaster already. Let's go ahead and pin this puppy down. Start so that we provide the right amount of excess. There we go. Okay. That's a little bit tricky to try and do on camera. Okay, got it locked down, and I've always found that it is definitely easier to work with it while it's still in the drill bit, and just allows you a little bit easier movement. So, we're going to lock this down. Okay, so we got that in. Now, position it just above this air hole. Yes, that's why we left ourselves a little bit of wiggle room here with the amount of legs that we have, so that we could position that coil right over the air hole. So it's sitting right above it. So now we want to make sure that our coils are evenly spaced out, and actually see a potential problem already. Loosen this up a little bit too much, and there we go. Much better. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and test fire this coil before we cut off the legs, and make sure that there's no hot spots. And also, when you do this, you want to make sure that you use a battery that's been drained a little bit. It doesn't have to be dead, but you don't want to use a freshly charged battery because you risk blowing your coil because you're overcharging it. And so yeah, we're getting a nice even glow right here. It's lighting from the center and going out, which is exactly the way that you want it. Let's see if we can get that on camera. Yeah, it's all firing up together. So that's perfect. So we're going to go ahead and also, when you test fire it, you're also going to anneal the wire a little bit, make it a little stiffer and easier to mount your cotton into. Because I know when you build with silica, typically you wrap around the silica, but with cotton you actually make your coil first and then mount in your cotton, and it also makes it way easier to swap wicks when you want to swap wicks and keep the same coil. So now we're going to go ahead and snip off our excess. And there's a lot of different ways that you can go about this. I mean, you can twist and pop it, which I do sometimes, but a lot of times I end up loosening my coil on accident. So, you know what? Alright, so okay, so now that we've done that, it's time to go ahead and get our wick prepared. And so, like I said, this is sugar and cream yarn, which I believe is the same as peaches and cream. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut ourselves off more than we need, which is, like I said, always a better idea in my opinion. It's much easier to trim. So there we go. And this is going to expand quite a bit, and I don't want to choke the chamber or the wick. And so what I'm actually going to do, this yarn is actually 4 strands twisted together, and I'm actually going to remove a strand. So that just kind of peels right off. You just grab one and then just get entangled. There we go. So there's this one strand that I don't want, and then right here I have 3 strands. I'm just going to give it a little twist and make sure that it's all nice and together. So now what we're going to do is to mount it, we're actually just going to take a piece of this kanthal that's left over. We're going to bend it right in the middle, and we're going to use this to pull through our wick. So we're going to take the middle, I'm going to fold it over, so we have a situation like, gosh, it's so hard to get everything on camera. So I have this little lead of this wire grabbing this wick, and what we're going to do is we're going to take it and we're going to actually thread it through. So we'll just push this right through, and then we pull our wick in, and we end up with a situation like this. And then we just pull off this little piece of wire that we use to lead our wick. Get this out of my way. Now, this is the part that a lot of people do in different ways. I actually do it according to the manual for the Kayfun, as far as how I situate my wicks that sit in the chamber. So I'm just going to gauge out how much wick it's going to take to fill in this section right here. And you definitely don't want too much wick in here, but you want enough. So I'm going to trim it here. And that looks like about the right amount. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so you end up with these little wicks that sit right in above where the slotted chamber groove is. They're going to sit here. I actually feel like I have just a little bit too much on this side. So I'm going to give that a little trim. Let's see now. Okay, yeah, that seems very nice. So now we're going to kind of situate them where we're going to want them to be. And then we're going to take this piece right here. This is the chamber cover. And we're going to cover it. So this is kind of tricky to do on the camera. What I do is I just hold these two pieces into place, cover it with the chamber, screw this chamber section on, and now I'm actually going to go ahead and add a little bit of juice to this to get the wick started. And you don't need to put a ton in here, but I'm just trying, the cotton wick does need to sit for a while before you can use it. I mean, probably a minimum of an hour. Overnight is best. I just added 6 drops to the wick itself so that that can start soaking all the way through the cotton. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and just assemble it. There's this little smokestack chimney thing. And the tank is one piece right now. This is actually 3 sections. There is a stainless steel section that you can put in here if you're going to be using some kind of tank cracking juice. I'm using Grant's vanilla custard in this right now, and this one does not crack tanks. I will be doing a review on Grant's here pretty soon. Been busy with some other things. I did want to go ahead and do this tutorial because I know some people are interested in how to get a cotton wick in here. Me personally, I'm not a fan of silica in general, and I found that the cotton works very well in this Kayfun. Alright, so I got the bottom section down, and then gotta always check and make sure that this little O-ring in here is in place. That one is really important. So we're going to go ahead and put this on here. And you want to screw everything down tight, but you don't need to go crazy over tightening it or anything. And we're going to fill it. We're actually going to fill it through the bottom. I really like filling this through the bottom as opposed to the top. Really should always be putting just a hair of juice on O-rings whenever possible. It really does help to preserve the O-rings themselves and makes things just snap in and out very easily. And looks like I got a drop of juice on there. Probably put just a hair too much in the chamber, but that's really not a big deal. That will definitely work itself out very soon. So, should have grabbed a bigger screwdriver for unscrewing this. This micro screwdriver will work, but it's not spent for it. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and just add in some juice, and I'm not going to go nuts over filling this. So I'll be plenty for right now. Down, and we're good to go. We're all set up, and so like I said before, we're definitely going to want to let this sit for a little while, at least an hour, and we'll see how this works out with the 28 gauge kanthal as opposed to the 30. So there we are.